Not every weapon fails quietly. Some explode too early. Some jam at the worst possible moment, and some turn against the very side that built them. In World War II, innovation moved fast to fast. And when machines were rushed into battle, mistakes became deadly. This is War Unsealed, and these are the weapons that backfired horribly. War demands speed. Factories worked day and night. Engineers skipped testing phases. Commanders wanted results. But when technology advances faster than reliability, the battlefield pays the price. Let's start with the early magnetic torpedo crisis. At the beginning of the war, German U-boats relied on what they believed was a revolutionary weapon. Their torpedoes were equipped with advanced magnetic detonators. The idea was brilliant. Instead of hitting the side of a ship, the torpedo would sense the ship's metallic hull and explode directly underneath it, breaking its keel and sinking it almost instantly. On paper, it was devastating. In reality, it was a disaster. The detonators constantly malfunctioned. They were so sensitive to changes in the Earth's magnetic field that they would either explode hundreds of meters away from their target or not at all. Submarine commanders watched in frustration as their torpedoes struck enemy ships with a dull thud and simply failed to detonate. Precious opportunities to cripple the enemy were lost, and the confidence of the U-boat crews collapsed. It took months of frantic work to correct the issue, but by then, the damage to Germany's early war operations was already done. Next, we have the Messerschmitt Me 163 Comet. This was the first and only operational rocket-powered fighter aircraft in history. It was incredibly fast, capable of climbing to altitude at a rate no Allied fighter could match. During its attack run, it was nearly untouchable. But that incredible speed came at a terrifying cost. The aircraft used highly volatile chemicals for fuel. If these substances mixed accidentally, they would combust violently. The plane's greatest weakness wasn't enemy fighters, it was landing. The Me 163 was essentially a glider on its return, landing on a small skid. If the landing was too hard, and it often was, the residual fuel tanks could rupture. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. Many German pilots survived harrowing encounters with Allied bomber formations only to perish in a fireball on their own runway. The Comet was a marvel of engineering, a glimpse into the future of aviation, but it was operationally unstable, a weapon often more dangerous to its own crew than to the enemy. And Germany wasn't alone in its torpedo troubles. Early in the war, American submarines in the Pacific faced a remarkably similar crisis. The U.S. Navy's standard-issue Mark 14 torpedo was plagued with multiple, devastating flaws. First, it had a tendency to run deeper than its set depth, often passing harmlessly underneath its target. Second, like its German counterpart, it had a magnetic detonator that was prone to premature explosions. And finally, even if it did hit the target, the contact detonator was so poorly designed that it often failed to go off. Captains risked their lives and their crews to get into the perfect firing position, only to watch their torpedoes fail silently. For a long time, the Navy bureaucracy refused to believe the reports, blaming the submarine crews for missing their targets. The truth was far worse. The weapon system itself was fundamentally flawed, a result of insufficient testing before the war. It cost the U.S. Navy countless opportunities to sink valuable enemy ships in the critical opening years of the conflict. Then there was the V-1 flying bomb, known as the Buzz Bomb or Doodle Bug. This early cruise missile was designed to terrorize cities, but its early launches were notoriously unpredictable. The complex steam-powered catapult and Pulse-Sejet engine were prone to failure. Malfunctions caused some to explode right on the launch ramp, while others would crash just moments after takeoff. Some would even veer wildly off course, circling back towards their own launch sites. The crews who operated these launch ramps were in constant danger. A simple mechanical failure could mean instant death. Even when the launch was successful, the V-1's guidance system was rudimentary, making it a weapon of fear rather than precision. It was a symbol of technological terror, but also one of inherent instability. Perhaps the most bizarre failure of them all came from Britain. The experimental weapon known as the Panjandrum was one of the strangest concepts of the war. It was essentially a massive, 10-foot-tall steel wheel propelled by dozens of rockets and packed with thousands of pounds of explosives. The goal was to roll this terrifying device across the beaches during an amphibious landing, like D-Day, to blast a path through German concrete defenses. During testing, it did roll, but not in a straight line. The rockets began to misfire and detach, causing the massive wheel to spin wildly out of control. It careened across the beach, shedding rockets and turning back towards the terrified observers. High-ranking officials and cameramen scrambled for cover, diving into ditches to escape the rogue weapon. The Panjandrum became far more dangerous to its allies than it ever could have been to the enemy. The project was, unsurprisingly, abandoned. War always accelerates invention. But invention without patience, without thorough testing, creates chaos. These weapons weren't necessarily weak. They were rushed, poorly tested, over-engineered, or simply ahead of their time. History remembers the victories, the brilliant strategies, and the successful technologies. But failure leaves quieter, deeper scars. In the desperate race for an edge, sometimes the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield is the one you trust too soon. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from War Unsealed.